What's going on, guys? It's Mohammed, the host of Aware Alpha, and welcome to episode 83, 84. I'm not sure exactly which episode this will be. I just want to say I'm feeling super grateful, super thankful. Actually, today is my first day of being 32. Yesterday I had a beautiful birthday with some amazing souls in my life, and I'm just super grateful. And mostly I am grateful for this podcast because a few years ago this was just a vision, and the fact that I'm able to have a platform where I'm able to share my experiences and also have awesome and interesting guests onto the show that I can ask questions and get to know on why they do what they do. And it's just a beautiful blessing for me. And of course, all the amazing feedback and interesting comments that I get from everyone that listens to the podcast on a weekly basis, it's only more inspiring and fuels me to do more of these and continue to keep this going. So with that being said, today we have a special guest. She goes by the name of Dominique. She's a tantra coach and an orgasm coach. So I'm super excited to dive deep and have an awesome conversation with her. And with that being said, Dominique, welcome to the Aware Alpha podcast.
Oh, delighted to be here. Thanks so much for inviting me to share with your audience. And hello, everyone. Thanks for spending your time with us today.
Thank you. So first question that comes off the top of my head is, what got you in this business or in this industry or in this space, as a tantra coach and an orgasm coach? I'm very curious to know myself.
How this all began?
Yeah.
Interesting journey for sure. For so long, for decades, I've been a registered nurse, and I was always really fascinated with everything that had to do with the heart. I worked initially working in critical care, cardiac care, intensive care units. I even got special training to assist with open heart surgeries and take the role of an assisting surgeon. So everything about the heart has fascinated me. And when I had my first experience with Tantra, I realized that really opened my heart, and the guards and the armor that I had just kind of like shutting down because I had fear to be hurt. Yeah. And I was able to open up that heart space. And I was like, okay, these are the tools that really help open hearts. And then just being a nurse too, holding people's hands when they're taking their last breath and they're facing the end of their life, and for them to share their regrets and their pain that they have. I can hold space for them, but I can't change that outcome or give them tools to help change that outcome. And I was like, wow, I can have something where I can meet people at an earlier point on their timeline and give them these tools so that they can, thrive. Because when I work with my clients too, I do like a 360 approach, because your body is the instrument to experience pleasure, right? So it's like, how do we optimize your body for peak performance? And so you can experience more pleasure and also have a healthier body. And how do you prevent disease? Because disease is just dis-ease. It's that discomfort in our bodies. And a lot of times unprocessed emotions and anger and past traumas can impact that. And if we feel shame about our sexuality and sex, that vibration, shame is the lowest vibration frequency on the emotional frequency scale. It's even lower than hate or fear and anger. And so we're just like lowering our vibration when we're feeling shame about these things that, like, literally we were created from sexual energy. So why do we have so much shame in our society around that? And so I had my first experience with someone who had mastered different Tantra practices. And I had always wanted to learn Tantra, but I delayed my journey by a solid decade thinking I needed a partner to begin. And then I learned it just starts with you. So I just had these life-changing experiences, and I'm really passionate about sharing with others. And I had what they call a Kundalini awakening in this time, where my third eye chakra and my crown chakra opened, and it completely changed the trajectory of my life path. And I was like, more people need to know about this. This is truly, pleasure is medicine. This is what really can impact and change lives. And if you think about it, we were created and first came into being through sexual energy.
Yeah.
Right. So if we want to hit a reset button on our lives, if we tap into the power of our sexual energy, then we can reset and recreate from that point, right? And embrace it. And then you understand the power of it in sexual transmutation, which is also discussed in Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich. Yeah. We can focus and channel that energy, not just on creating a human life, but creating the life that our heart desires. So there's so much power there. And so I just really am about empowering people to feel more pleasure and bliss and let go of the lower vibrations and things that are holding them back, like shames and past traumas.
That's so awesome. And what do you feel like is like all this shame and guilt that, I feel like everyone has, right? Where do you feel like it comes from?
I believe it's just conditioning by our society. And I think also rulers of society, it's easier to control a population when they're disempowered, right? So if they're shaming us and making us feel bad or wrong about things that could actually be really powerful and transformative for us, but we're kind of shying away from it. We're like, oh, we're told that's bad, or I'm taught that this isn't good for me to do. But the thing is, like, there's nothing wrong with sex or sexual energy. We just have had a misunderstanding and haven't been taught or educated about the power and the beauty and the transformation that's available with that. And our society has kind of twisted and perverted it. And then we learn about sex by watching porn, which is usually lower vibrational things that we're seeing a lot of times. And it's not showing us what's fully possible to experience. And it's more about sex as a performance or based on your ego or superficial, shallow sexual connections. But when you know how to have sex with someone's soul and connect with them on that deep, intimate level, it's just like the sexual healing that Marvin Gaye would sing about. So I think a lot of the shame is controlling society, disempowering us. And when we don't know the power of our sexual energy and how powerful we are, then we look outside at everything else to make us feel like we're whole or complete. And we want to accumulate possessions, the status symbols. We're worried just on the superficial, like the exterior, how our life looks, how our bodies look. But life is really an inside out game. So what's happening on the inside is going to impact how your outer world is looking. So we need to change and tap into our power within. And then we can create lasting change in our outer world, because our outer world is just a reflection of our inner world.
Yeah, no, I understand that so much. Literally, that our outer experience, the external stuff is literally a reflection of what's happening actually inside, right? So, no, I totally agree with that. What do you feel like? So if one wants to discover, and once again, like, I'm all about sexual energy. I share a lot about it. Like, I could probably just talk on this podcast all about it. But I'm curious to hear your thoughts here, since you're the guest on this podcast. How does one start discovering this sexual energy?
Just learning how to connect and drop into their bodies. A lot of times in our bodies, in our modern world, we are overusing and overemphasize the value of our logical mind. Just think about how we're conditioned, even as small children, like, what grades are you making? What accolades, what trophies are you winning? So it's just all this like perform, and I just need to be the smartest one. And we don't look at having tools or skills to really help us drop into our bodies and connect to our bodies, and so much wisdom that we have in our bodies, right? So what I love about Tantra, it helps you kind of disconnect from that overthinking mind sometimes, and use through your five senses how to drop in and connect to your body to experience more pleasure, more love, more bliss through all of these sensations. And a lot of times it's our kind of the monkey mind or the monkey brain that is distracting us from experiencing pleasure. And white Tantra practices, actually, they are like breath work, meditation, yantras, mantras, other things like that. But when we work with meditation, it helps us to have better sex and to be a better lover, because our brain is our largest sex organ. So when we can get out of our way and stop worrying or being distracted, and we can fully drop in with ourselves and with someone else, then that's, that changes everything. And we're able to have like a deeper connection and be able to have intimacy and experience more of that pleasure in our body. And then knowing where your sexual energy is, doing practices, being aware of any energy leaks that you may have, how you might be even leaking your sexual energy, how it can be draining you. And for males, a common way that their sexual energy is leaked is by having frequent ejaculatory orgasms. And so I coach my male clients on how to have non-ejaculatory orgasms. And sometimes they'll have ejaculatory orgasms, but they'll limit how many of those they have per month or week based on their age and their physical health. And things like that. And then males are actually able to have full body orgasms and feel, one of my clients is like, I can feel my orgasm from the top of my head down to my big toe. And that's so restorative and really great for your chi, your vital force energy, and you're able to do practices to build that energy up in your body, strengthen your pelvic floor, do breath work. Then with meditation and other tantra practices, understanding how to tap into that energy, how to cultivate it and build it, and how to circulate it through your body for your own, for you to optimize yourself.
Yeah, no, I always say it's like once you really truly learn to transmute your sexual energy, it's like a natural pre-workout. Like you're just always, inspired. You're always just driven, motivated because you just have all this life force running through you, right? So a thought that comes to my mind is when it comes to like not ejaculating, right? And having an orgasm without ejaculating, right? Of course, that on a practical level, that's pretty hard when you first start doing it. So what are some exercises that you share with your clients to be able to have an orgasm without ejaculating? Like some that I've heard of, like Kegel exercises. So, like make your, PC muscles strong enough to be able to, when it comes down to ejaculating, like you flex that muscle and then you are able to not have it. And I practice that myself, right? But I'm curious to hear some of more strategies on someone that could actually end up having an orgasm without ejaculating, and how could they start this on a practical level to get there?
Okay, I love this question. And I'm going to add something first really quick on what we were just saying too, is that even I also study, in addition to Tantra, Taoist practices, and I incorporate both because they're very similar. And I've learned from Mantak Chia, Master Mantak Chia, who's been teaching these practices for over 40 years. And I have several of his books and I've attended his workshops. And in Taoist beliefs, they believe that the reason on average the lifespan for males is shorter than females is that males lose a lot of their chi and their life force energy through frequent ejaculation. You're literally just draining that energy out through your body. That energy and the fluids that you release could create so many lives. There's so many minerals and everything in there. So you're depleting yourself, and then your body has to build that back up. And so when you'll see commonly after sex, on average, males will fall asleep more quickly than the female, and the female gets more charged up with the orgasm. So the way our bodies respond to orgasms is different based on our anatomy and everything. Now, whenever you're learning this mastery, it takes my clients, they'll start having better sex within the first 3 months, but it takes them 6 months to more like a year to fully have this mastery, because you've already been experiencing pleasure for one way for several decades, usually by the time someone works with me. And you have these neural pathways in your brain, these pleasure pathways. And so I wanted to create new pleasure pathways with my clients using neuroplasticity and other techniques so that you can have a prolonged pleasure pathway and a different experience. But for males too, and females, when we first learn to masturbate, we do things very fast to get from point A to point B, so we're not caught by our parents. And again, the shame gets tied into these things, right? So we're doing everything very fast. And so your body has gotten used to that. And you're wanting to retrain your body and creating the new pathways. So one of the things is doing PC squeezes. There's other things with tantric breathwork practices that I teach my clients, and other self-pleasure rituals, because it's very important for males that it's almost like, do not try this at home. Don't try this on your own with a partner, because the feminine, even if you're not telling them what you're trying to work on, we're very intuitive, and it can feel so frustrating when we're with a man and then we can feel, since they're distracted or distracted, like they're totally somewhere else and they're not fully present, because they might be thinking, what is that step I need to do? And now I need to breathe like this and do like this. And I've even had people tell me, oh, I had a lover that was trying to learn Tantra, and I felt like every time we're together, it was some lab experiment. And I was so tired of it, I just stopped the relationship, because you're not feeling that intimacy or that connection. So it's so important that first you have this mastery within yourself before you start trying to do it with a lover, because you're just going to create more frustration in your intimate relationships. So giving yourself the time to learn something new, and just know that it takes time, and you have to learn this within your body. And if you just read books, think about how, if you're trying to learn to ride a bike, right, and you don't know how, and then you're just going to read a book about riding a bike, and you're like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. I think I can do this. But you'll learn pretty quick when you get on that bike. If your body hasn't been able to experience this, and the wisdom hasn't come from your logical mind down into like who you be at a cellular level, pretty quick, you're going to see like, oh my gosh, I really don't know how to do this. And so that's why it's helpful to have someone to coach you and teach you how to do the practices and do the things so that you know this in your body and you have that level of mastery.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. Yeah, like I have so many questions, but one question actually that I have is about, at the beginning, you said that you want to get into your body and get into your body through your five senses. So on a practical level, like what would that look like? So what let's say I sit down and I start to take deep breaths and I start to just feel sensations. I start to hear sensations. I start to taste, is that me getting into the body?
Yes, that's part of it. It's a big part of it. And just the breathing, connecting to your breath and dropping that down and having more awareness about your body. And then even using all your five senses, because even if you visualize, even if you're not using your sight, but you're just visualizing with your eyes and your sense of sight, where your energy is flowing in your body, where our attention goes, energy flows. So we can visualize these things in our body and start to connect to our body through breath work. Not just deep breathing, but even breath work practices, learning more about your chakras and opening your chakras up, and just being able to use other senses that will drop you in, like a sense of smell, like a candle or cinnamon candle is really great for males, really like that. When it's romantic, it releases a lot of different things happening in your body when males smell a scent of cinnamon. But you can have something that is smelling good. And even in Tantra, you can even approach your food as eating food in a tantric way. You can just be savoring every bite, like taking it in, slowing down, instead of just like we can eat so fast. And also with sex, we can do everything so fast. But if we slow down, have more awareness, we connect to it, we have gratitude, appreciation for it. We can, we can look at something and appreciate the outer beauty of it. We can feel something, and with touch and using touch inside on ourselves and with our partners, we can connect more into the body, and just having that intention. So there's a lot of things in sounds. The three main tenets of Tantra are breath, sound, and movement. So when you're breathing deeply, that's you'll have a different sensation of feeling more of your energy in your body. And more pleasure in your body as well. Sounds release a frequency. And so you can listen to like esophageal tones or healing frequency sounds to even support each of your chakra centers. And even sound and music, it puts us in a mood. Just think about how movies can create that suspense or fear or happiness or joy or sadness by the music that's being played. And so we can also tune into music that can elevate our moods or make us feel more passionate or sexy or whatever that mood is, and have that with the sound, and then moving our bodies to being connected to our bodies and moving with intention even before we're having sex. That's why even dancing is so great before you have sex, because you're moving that any stagnant or stuck energy through your bodies. And when you just like are moving your hips and you're breathing, you're listening to music even before sex, like that can get your body more prepared for sex itself.
I love it. No, that's some good stuff. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
So when it comes to, you were saying you want to learn the step with yourself before you do it with a partner. Of course, if you have a partner that's open to learning these things with you, it's also just as amazing.
Yes. But you shouldn't expect them to be your test subject every time. You need to have some mastery, because you will end up having them be frustrated. And so that's just a pro tip there. I've had someone before that he had wanted to coach with me, and he has a wife and two small kids. And I was actually getting my Tantra certification. I had offered him because I had to get so many hours in. This was years ago. So I reached out to him because I knew he was interested. And I was like, you know what? I even am getting my coaching hours. And so I can offer you like a bonus gift at like a steal of a thing, or maybe I was even going to do it for free. I don't know. But I was just like, I can teach you. And he didn't show up to do it. He was like, oh, no, I'm just going to figure it out. And then about 6 months later, he messaged me. He was like, my wife left me. I got so consumed with trying to master this that I was always thinking about this every time we were having sex, and I wasn't connecting with her, and she got tired of it and left. And I was like, wow, like sometimes we think, oh, there's a cost of investing, or, oh, I don't need to do that. I can figure it out on my own. But there's also a cost associated when we don't take action for ourselves, and we don't invest in getting the tools that will help us have transformation.
No, it makes total sense. So now let's say this self-pleasure exercises that you start to do with yourself, right? Most
Mhm.
men, they're naturally, every time they get horny or excited, they have the sexual energy running through them. It's just only one way they know how to release it. Open your laptop, open your phone, watch porn, and then ejaculate, done, go to sleep, right? This is the only way, but 90% of men feel like, no, it's the only way to release energy, right? So,
Right.
which is okay, whatever it is. So now, there is these aware men that are like, okay, like I want to actually learn to self-pleasure, and I want to, master, I want to last longer, I want to have more stamina, I want to learn to orgasm without ejaculating. So when they start to have self-pleasure sessions, do you suggest your clients to watch porn where they're doing these self-pleasure sessions, or are they supposed to not use fantasy or porn and do it without it?
That's such a great question. I love that you asked that.
Thank you.
I've always been really open about porn and never really had any judgment about porn, very open-minded. And then one of my coaches had me read a body, and he's actually a man, and he's like, read this book called Your Brain on Porn. And so I read that book, and then I had an understanding how it was really impacting men. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I need to educate about this. So they're noticing, what they're noticing is that even younger and younger males are having erectile dysfunction, because back in the day, if a young boy is going to masturbate, he might find a photo from his mom's lingerie catalog or his dad's Playboy magazine, if he's lucky, right? And it's just a static image that he begins masturbating to. Mm-hmm. And so then what happens now is that teenage kids have access to seeing the porns and the videos from their phone and through different apps. Like they've figured this out. Mm-hmm. So when they're very first starting to have these experiences in their bodies, and with neuroplasticity, they're used to having this rapid fire sequence of the money shot. So it's like pussy tits ass, pussy tits ass, you know what I mean? And it's like rapid fire sequence. And then and so later your brain kind of becomes dependent on this extra stimulation. So then when you try to be with a lover, your partner, all of a sudden things may not be responding because your body's like, hey, where's all that stimulation we're used to getting? Yeah. And so now, since the younger males have gotten so used to this and they start to rely on this, they start experiencing pleasure in a different way in their bodies. And sometimes they're having more erectile dysfunction. Yeah. And so one of my clients, though, he was actually in his 60s and he was not able to have sex with his wife, even with Viagra was failing him. And so we started working together, and now he's like, I'm pharmaceutical free, fully functioning. My wife's happier than ever. And he says, we're having better sex at 60 than when we were 30. And he was like, and I feel so much power in my penis. I wish I discovered this 15 years ago. It's really is a game changer, but he took the time and invested and did the practices and everything and the rituals and just started having a whole new experience. So this helps. I coach my clients with porn addiction, erectile dysfunction, premature ejaculation. So then back to that, the porn. Now, if people were watching porn, I encourage them to watch ethical porn, but only rare. Like if you need to watch it sometimes to get things going, that's okay. I had one client that he was in his early 70s. He was always very logical. He was like, my twin brother's a priest. I feel like in a past life, I was a priest and took a vow of celibacy. So he was almost like flatline with his sexual energy. So when we started working together, I said, after some time, I said, you need to watch some porn because you're so disconnected from your body and you're always so much in these elevated states of consciousness and meditating and studying and working on this part of your body. You're disconnected. And so I guided him. I was just like, you need to tap into your turn on a little bit and then do these other practices so you can build that energy up. And then one time we had a session together and I was going to guide him on something and just opening his heart chakra. And when I started guiding him through the breath work and I was going to guide him on this meditation, I could see that he was starting to have like a full body orgasm without even touching himself. He's fully clothed. He's sitting on the sofa. And he even said, he was like, oh my gosh, I've never experienced anything like this before. And like his head was being thrown back. Like he was just, his whole body was vibrating because he was like feeling that sexual energy surge through him. But I did have to recommend porn. So sometimes I'll say that I'm like, if you're really having a challenge, I can see that, but let's also change and have some self-pleasure rituals and sessions where you're not using porn. And you're also changing the way you're stimulating, because a lot of times males will grab their cock really hard and be pulling on it, and they're more aggressive with it, right?
Yeah.
And so then what happens then is you won't, desensitization can happen, and you're not going to be as stimulated or aroused with not such a firm grip. And when a woman is having multiple orgasms and being with you for hours, what like can happen with tantra, and she's really wet and just flooding and having like all these amazing orgasms, you're not going to have that super tight grip. That's just how it is. So if you know how to like gently massage yourself and still stay erect and do different things, and with your breath and knowing how to move that energy through your body, and then you're actually going to be able to have a better experience and not have some of the challenges, because we weren't meant to be grabbed that firm or have that firm of a touch. So that's just another thing that I would add in there that I think is really important. And just knowing the power of your sexual energy, and don't dumb yourself down. Because if we look at a lot of the visuals and a lot of what mainstream porn can be, as a lot of like times degrading, or not even, it's just performance, and it's just people being about their ego. And actually it's really dumbing us down, because that's not even what women want to experience. So males will be like, oh, why doesn't my woman want to have sex more often? It's like, well, because you keep doing all these jackhammer moves and these moves that you see in pornos, and that's not what we want. And so if I could just invite you to try something really quick to demonstrate even to your viewers. Okay. I just want you to get your hands and bring them together, and then rub them back and forth really fast, just as fast as you can. Okay. Now just slow down. Go really, really slow. And just touch your hands though, just really slow. Now notice how much more sensation you feel going slow. So males, you're doing this and you're doing a whole lot of work, and you think we're really loving it. And they're like, I'm just beating the pussy up, et cetera, which is bullshit. Like, we don't care about that. That's again, another ego statement, right? So this, we don't feel as much. Our brain can't even process at that fast of a rate. Our brain cannot process that stimulation to feel it as much. And almost starts to numb out a little bit. So we're actually feeling less pleasure when men are doing that. But of course, porn is not going to let you know that. They're making you think. And remember, they're actors and actresses. So often we can watch a movie and know it's fictional, and that it's, that it's acting. But when we see porn, men are getting this signal of like, oh, this is what women want. No, it's not. And I was actually, I'm actually good friends with someone who's been in the Hall of Fame for porn, and she's like a legend. She's been doing porn for, oh my gosh, over 20 years. Right. Okay. And she shared with me one time that she doesn't even feel like she's having sex when she's working. She's like, oh, that's just cardio with penetration. It's not even, she doesn't even register it as sex. I'm burning calories. I'm getting my cardio in while someone's penetrating me, whatever.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And so but we think when we view it, oh, that's what they like. So I actually introduced her to her current husband that she's been with now maybe for 10 years, maybe longer. And they have a really beautiful marriage. And he's the physician that I worked with. And I said to him, whatever you do, whenever you have sex with her, do not do it like what you see in porns, because that's not going to be what she likes. And he listened. Yeah. So it was really interesting, but that's the illusion, and we buy into it. We believe it. Right. So just having an awareness. Now, do you need to be an extremist? Like, sometimes you eat a really healthy diet. We need to watch the things that we're consuming. Lyrics, music. Is it low vibration? Is it stressing us out? Is it stressing out our nervous system? Right. Is it creating anxiety within us? Sometimes we may want to listen to something that makes that feeling, or has some lyrics that aren't the highest vibration. You know what I mean? About bitches and hoes or whatever. Sometimes I listen to that shit too, right? I'm a human having a human experience. But the thing is, we can like eat really healthy or consume things to nourish our mind, body, soul, right? But sometimes maybe we do go through the drive-through and have something that we know isn't the best thing for us. And don't shame yourself or beat yourself up about that. Just see if you can do a better choice. Like, okay, I want to be sure that the things I'm watching are ethical porn and that this isn't a product of anyone being sex trafficking or really low vibration, that I'm consuming this energy in just by me witnessing it. Right. So you just have to have an awareness and make a conscious decision, and then don't beat yourself up or shame yourself, because it's fine. You're human. And when you want to do that on occasion, fine. But just know that majority of the time you're doing things with more awareness and you're tapping into the power of your sexual energy and your own power and the power of your pleasure. And not, there's a really beautiful quote that I love that is like, males who are not slaves to their sexual energy are focused men, and focused men are powerful men. So you're getting distracted and leaking and draining a lot of your life force energy, and it's dumbing you down. And the divine masculine and conscious cock is so healing for the collective on the planet. And it's definitely what divine feminine desires. Like we want to have something that is more evolved than what we see modeled in porn.
Yeah, no, I totally strongly agree with everything you just shared. So I actually have a program, the Zen Guide to Freedom from Porn. So I work with men, helping them get over porn. And one of the things I do teach them actually on the self-pleasure thing is to start self-pleasuring using non-fantasy. So like non-fantasy self-pleasure, where you just touch yourself, feel yourself, and get yourself turned on by touching and feeling the sensations in your body. And because most men that I work with, they can't even actually get hard without watching porn, which is already like a good reason to start this self-pleasure sessions and actually start to get hard without, I call it fantasy, right? So non-fantasy self-pleasure sessions. Question that came to my mind is, so you mentioned about what women want, and I want to dive deeper on that. From your experience working with, a lot of women and men, naturally for men, they literally like sex ed, they start learning these days from 12, 13, 14, 15, it's rare your mom and dad has a conversation with you. So you literally start to learn about sex and women from porn. So you already are on the wrong track, right? Not only just besides it's going to cause you a lot of difficulties, erectile dysfunction, all this hyper-stimulating things playing, but on top of that, like it's going to mess up your relationship. It's going to mess up your paradigm on how you think women want to be approached. You objectify women, like it's so much stuff it does to you, right?
There's so many layers to this. I love you're doing this work. That's so beautiful.
Thank you. And so my question is, from your experience, even, from a personal level and also all the women that you have worked with, what do women really want? And not overall, but in bed, what do women want? Maybe you can give us like a top 3, top 4. And of course there's everybody's different, and of course, sometimes when you have a good connection with the woman, you can go fast, you can go slow, you can try a whole bunch of stuff. But I'm just curious to hear your list of like, what do most women want in bed?
That's such a great question. And I love the practices, the things you're teaching. That's how I teach my clients too, to try and tap into pleasure without having to use fantasy or porn. And just slowly, like if they have to have it for a bit, then just get used to relying on it less and less. So with that, women really, we like your presence is a gift. So the whole reason for Tantra was never about having better sex. Tantra is a tool for expanding your consciousness. So back in the day when these tools were first used, they weren't even allowed to be used by women. They were only used by men. And if you think there's like Buddhist Tantra, and you think of the Buddhist monks that are on the side of the mountains meditating for hours, and they're trying to get into this enlightened state and, be in this kind of Zen type consciousness. So they're using all the energy and the power within themselves to open up their chakra systems, to let their energy flow and be more expanded, and to open up their third eye and their crown chakra and have more awareness and connection, and really expand their auras, expand their consciousness for amazing healing. The thing is, when someone has this ability to have this high level of self-mastery, and they really take the time to really get to know themselves, to understand any past traumas that they had before and start work on them. They have a meditative mindset. They know how when to be with a lover. They can really drop in and be present and not be thinking and distracted about something else, and can deeply connect. That is so beautiful. So the first thing I would say is presence. But what makes someone that has mastered Tantra such a great lover is they have all these skills and have worked on the emotional body, the energy body, our physical body, and have all this level of mastery. So then they show up in a whole different way. And then that's what makes them a good lover, because they first start having amazing ways of loving themselves. Pink Tantra focuses on self-love, and just begin to be the type of lover that you want to attract. And that helps you be a better lover. Having prolonged self-pleasure with yourself is really great, so you can be a better lover and understand your body more. So really, they love presence and connection and safety. Like if we feel like we can be safe and trust you. So when we feel safe with a partner or lover, we can relax and surrender. So a lot of times there have been so many traumas on women in the past. And they did one survey and they asked a group of men and women, what was their biggest fear on a first date? For men, their biggest fear was being laughed at. For women, the biggest fear was being raped. And I'm over here pointing to a flower, which is more feminine, and books and logic is more of a masculine energy. Okay, so their biggest fear is being raped or killed. Completely opposite ends of a spectrum.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things in society where women can feel very not safe. And so they're on this hyper alert, right? And trying to feel safe in environment. So once you establish a relationship with a woman, and if you can create safety, and if you know how to regulate your nervous system and you feel safe in your body, and you can create a safe space with someone else, and this person feels like you really see them, that you're taking the time to get to know them, that you're trustworthy and you're showing these things, and they feel like there's that level of commitment, then the woman will start to let some of those walls down and surrender. And a lot of times it can be so frustrating for males, because it's always like the women are testing them, but we're testing to make sure. And sometimes we're hyper vigilant because of a past trauma, but also like, are we safe with you? Can we be safe with you? And we're like doing little things. It's like, why is she testing me so much? Because we're trying to determine if there's safety here for us. So for women, whenever our heart chakra opens, the heart space, and we're feeling safe, our heart will open more. And in Tantra, Sanskrit word for your vagina is the yoni, which means, like the sacred cave in a way. It's a sacred area, sacred space. And so whenever our heart opens, then the yoni opens more, and we open up more below, and our orgasms will flow more easily, because then we can relax, we can surrender, we can receive, right? And for males, it's the opposite. So if you think for a woman, like our positive pole, you think like a battery, a positive and negative charge. For a woman, our positive pole or positive charge is in our heart chakra. Our negative charge is in our genitals. Not to say that genitals are negative, but just for to understand how the energy works.
Yeah.
So for males, their positive charge is in their penis and their genitals, and their negative charge is in the heart. That's why when males are interested in being with a woman in things, a lot of times, first thing they think they want to do is show the dick pic. Like, oh my gosh, like, I love this. This is my family jewels. Let me show you, because this is like how I feel loved and appreciated when you can appreciate my dick. So here, appreciate my amazing dick, right? But it's not received well by women, because they're like, no, don't go there so fast. Leave some mystery here. Take your time with me. And can we just not have the focus be on your dick? Can we work and see if we have a connection in the heart? So for males, once the dick feels validated and satisfied, then the energy can come up through to the heart space, and then the heart can open.
Yeah.
So it's like opposite. They say the way to a man's heart is through the stomach, but it's not. It's actually like through the genitals and the penis, right? So, and just having that. And so it's so interesting how we're opposite that way. So for women, that's why when they have some more romance, when you take even some more time and stimulate their breasts and their nipples and have more foreplay, they can start to soften and open more. The other thing is that it takes on average a woman 20 minutes or so to be in arousal state to really even be fully penetrated and to begin having orgasms. A lot of men don't even last for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And so men, they get turned on really fast, and it can fade out fast.
Yeah.
For women, we're slow, like we're slow boil, and it takes a while. You have to preheat the oven.
Yeah.
Right. And so then, before you put anything in the oven, preheat it.
Yeah.
So you need to do that, because then that way we can start to be more aroused before you begin with us. So then we can both enjoy sex. But what's happening a lot of times, if the males don't understand this and they're trying to penetrate too fast, even on a conscious level, if the woman isn't aware of it, subconsciously her body could feel like, oh my gosh, he's hardly giving you any time. He's barely using any lube. He's just penetrating you. And even though a woman may feel, because of previous conditioning of like people pleasing, or this is my duty or responsibility, or this is how I get a man, whatever the woman's training can be, they can put up with that for a while, but then subconsciously they'll start to resent it, because it's like, I'm feeling violated. I feel like this person's just masturbating in my body.
Yeah.
They're not caring about my experience here. So then women are just like, I'm not as interested in sex anymore, because it's just, for us, it's almost like men will talk about, oh, if you're not having sex with me, that gives me blue balls. Well, okay, you're giving us blue ovaries. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's the same thing. It's like, we're frustrated because we're like getting ready. We're like, oh, we're going to have sex and make love. Great. This is going to feel good. And we can do a lot of things to prepare, like for a hot date. You know how long it takes us to shave our legs? Not to say that's a requirement, but it's a lot of, in our society, what a lot of women do, go through all these rituals of doing their hair, doing their makeup, getting dressed. And like the sex can last less time than even what we put into preparing for it. Yeah. So then that can build a resentment. Like, I could have just stayed at home with my toy and not even had to do all this, and could have lasted longer than. And so if a woman is continually disappointed, it's important to be aware of that, and like make sure, if you can give oral, use even some of her toys, bring toys in. Toys are not your competition. Collaborate with them, right? Work with them together so that you can prolong the pleasure you're sharing with that person. And when they see like your ego, you're letting your ego go, and you're really wanting to be as concerned with their pleasure as you are yours, then they will be more receptive and want to have more and more sex. So when males are like, oh, or women are like, I don't like having sex with my husband, I'm like, have your husband come work with me. I'll coach him. And like, the tables will be turned. Like literally the husband will be like, oh my gosh, my wife just always just wants to have sex with me. So, you can flip that, change that up a little bit. But those are, safety though is a big, big thing. And having better sex with a woman, creating that safety and being attentive in your presence.
No, I think it's interesting how simple it is in a way, right? Presence, safety. Yeah. I feel like the story of most men these days, they're not aware that, their conditioning comes from porn, and they just naturally just assume, like, first of all, they're objectifying the woman. And second, when they do have a woman in their life, they just like what they've seen in porn, right? Penetrate, fuck hard. And, that's it. So, but literally it's the opposite. Like, first of all, if she doesn't feel your presence, if you're in your head the whole time, second, if she doesn't feel safe with you, and then on top of that, which is a very sad thing, but like most women will end up just accepting this. And like, so it's like requires work on both, on, the feminine and the masculine, right? But to just focus on men, it's just crazy. Like they're conditioned by this stuff, but women are conditioned as well, just watching porn as well. And they naturally start to feel like, okay, I guess this is what it is. Like, this is what the man
what
wants.
positions, it gets very performance based and more on a superficial level. And when I first began my journey with Tantra and I had my awakening, I actually had a date with a lover that I did not know that he had studied Tantra for over a year. He had dated a Tantra coach. He had mastered the ability to have non-ejaculatory orgasms. And when I was with him, I didn't know these things. He hadn't shared that with me yet. And then whenever I was with him, I had what I call my first soulgasm. That's how I had my awakening. So I was able to experience, and not on any substances or chemicals, I was able to experience prolonged states of pleasure for over 5 hours. And it seems like, one of my friends was like, oh my gosh, I would be so bored having sex that long. I mean, I would be like, are you done yet? And I was like, yeah, well, if you're thinking of the porn style sex with the jackhammer move for 5 hours, yeah, that would get old really fast, right?
Yeah.
That's not what we want. But with this person, one, he also teaches meditation. So he was able to drop in and be really present with me.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing, a lot of times, you know, I'm Scorpio, I'm born on Halloween. And before Tantra, I behaved more like Samantha on Sex and the City. And I was very much in my ego and performance and, you know, with sex and kind of being in my masculine energy, not even kind of, very much in my masculine. And I was like, oh, you can't break my heart or whatever. I can have sex without feelings. I could just be like any dude, right? And I approach sex that way. And I would also notice that sometimes, because I'm very intuitive, I would notice that I could sense when a lover, like if I was to really unleash all the pleasure I could be having, I would push that lover to the point of no return. And then it would be game over for us. So I would have to almost like the reins, like I would have to rein myself in sometimes and hold back and pause on my pleasure and keep it at a lower level than it could have been. Because if I kept raising that pleasure, I was going to literally with my pussy, like pull that orgasm out of him. So, and so I would like slow things down. Now he didn't say anything to me, but intuitively I could tell that no matter what I was doing, when I was getting more and more aroused, he was so solid in where he was. Like he was not shook at all. I could tell that he could handle it without him even saying it. I was like, wow, like I can really I could go all out on this. I don't have to rein myself in. He can hold and handle me being in amazing states of pleasure and bliss.
Yeah. Holding
So then I
space.
just kept riding those waves of pleasure. And like I was on top. I remember he was like honoring me, like me being the goddess. And he was just there holding space and just like letting it go. And I just would have orgasm after orgasm after orgasm. Now, whenever it finished, I knew that we spent a big chunk of time together. But at the same time, it felt like maybe 20 minutes had elapsed. It was like timeless, like time, you know, it's like when you get in a flow state. Time just stood still. And the pleasure was like nothing I've ever experienced before. And it was deeply healing for me. And so with this, my sexual energy was able to move up all through my energy centers of my body. And with breathing more, then the energy went up to my third eye, my crown chakra, and they opened. And so the next morning he said, hey, would you like to return tonight? Again. And I was like, oh, is that a question? I'll be here. Like, this is, I didn't know even at the time still about Tantra, that's what was happening. And we did it again for another 5 hours. And it was a whole thing again of him being able to hold space and just be there and allow me to be in these really heightened states of bliss for extended periods of time. And that time when I finished, I sat up in the bed and I just looked him in the eyes and I was just like, I just want to clone you and give one of you to all my friends. Because I actually felt some heartbreak for my friends. I was like, most women are never going to experience this in their lifetime. Most of my friends and people I know will never experience this. And I was already speaking on Playboy Radio, giving sex tips. I already thought I was already having better sex than 99% of people that I knew. And I realized that I had merely been scratching the surface of what was possible for me, like the tip of the iceberg, like down deep, there's so much more. And that's what's happening in our society. We're dumbed down and we don't realize that we can experience so much more and also gift our partners with so much more when we can go to the depths of it all and connect to the soul. And then later he introduced me to my first Tantra coach. And he was sharing with me, he's like, you're like Tantra without even knowing what it is. Like you're just naturally Tantra. He was like, I actually feel like I did this with you in a past lifetime before. Like I was having flashbacks with you. So it was really an interesting experience. And that's how I had my awakening. So I'm a big advocate and I'm really big. I'm like, all right, I don't even know how to begin to teach my friends how this happened. And more men need to know that they have this ability for women because a lot of men don't know that this is possible. So I was like, I want to share this message and reach more people because it changed my life in so many beautiful ways.
Yeah, no, I love everything you just shared. And about that thought where, you know, like most people or most women, for example, if you say like, you know, 5-6 hour experience, they're like, they're not okay with it, because in their mind they're thinking of 6 hours of what you see in porn, like their vagina just being penetrated. And from any woman that I have known, it's like no one wants to be pounded for 6 hours. Like she would be sore after 10-15 minutes. But if you're able to, like I've had 3-4 hour experiences with my partners, it's because I started with a 45-minute relaxation massage. We're using not just our genitals, we're using our hands, our mouths, our tongues, staring. Like there's so many other things. And when you're having those kind of experiences, it's like 4 or 5 hours goes by like this. And you're like, holy crap, like we started at 9, it's 2:00 in the morning, so it's like, how did it go? But most people, especially women, it's like, the idea of 5 hours right away, they're like 5 hours, like I don't even want that, because they're just thinking of, imagine just being penetrated for 5 hours, and especially in porn where it's just like hard penetration. Like from my understanding, no one wants to be penetrated that hard for 5 hours, so
Right.
just it's all this paradigm and expectations of what we think and what it's actually the true, right? The second thing I wanted to just I guess in a way ask this question is, women in a way, like 5 hours, they don't want that. Men, when they think about, let's say they have like they hear a couple that like, oh man, I had sex last night with my partner for like 3 hours. I feel like most men feel the performance anxiety, or they feel like they're like, because in their mind, like, shit, I haven't had a 3-hour experience with my partner. Like I can't even last long 3 hours. So right away they start to cause mental like anxiety for themselves, because they're like, oh shit, I can't do that. And a lot of them are not aware that like there's all these experiences and practices like tantra and everything like that you can do with a woman, right? From your experience or people that you work with, what's the average time, or not average time, but like when it comes to women, like how much penetration do they actually are comfortable with? When it comes to, let's say, a time, like how much time or whatever. Like I'm just curious, because I feel like most men, when they hear about 5-6 hours, they watch these porns and they're like, shit, like I can't do an hour, 2 hours of like just pounding my woman, like all the stuff so it makes someone, I feel like that's why a lot of performance and anxiety comes, where a lot of men just can't feel like, and that's the other destructive side of porn, because you're watching it. And one of the destructive side of it is like, you watch this man on the screen and you start to feel less of a man, because you're like, I can never be this man. And that starts to, which is studies show, lower self-confidence, lower self-esteem, all this stuff, right? So from your experience and from the woman that you work with, naturally, how much penetration do women actually want from these amazing experiences?
I think that would vary from woman to woman as to what that they prefer. So it's really important to check in with your lover on what they enjoy. But a lot of times women aren't having good sex. So the thought of like participating in something for 5 hours that they're really not going to enjoy, and they're just performing to satisfy their partner, just seems more like a chore than something that they would want to experience. But whenever a woman is really being honored as the goddess and revered, and there's that connection, and your partner's able to let their walls down and their guard down and have intimacy and allow you to see them, you start to have this dance, and it's more like your souls are making love too, instead of just your physical bodies. And so it's really, you start getting charged up by the whole experience, and you're like sharing this energy, this dance back and forth between you, and you're like charging them up and they're charging you up, and you're just in this flow state with it. So it's actually easier for the male once they learn this mastery, but you have to build the body energetically on a somatic level on your body. You have to build a body that can hold that much. So it's about how you're managing your energy in your body, right? And it's going to take time. You don't go and work with a trainer, personal trainer, and do one workout and come out of the gym with your muscles ripped and a 6-pack of abs. Like that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And this is just like any other muscle or building something in your body. It's through repetition. It's through over time repeating that. So then you're able to last longer and longer. So someone that is having, I can imagine it would give performance anxiety, like, oh my gosh, I can't do that. But instead of that, know that, if you see someone doing that in porn, what you see, a lot of it is edited and Photoshop and different takes at different times. So that's not reality. Yeah, but in life, when people say, I can have sex for this many hours, just know that if someone else is able to do that, it's also possible for you.
Mhm.
They weren't born into this amazing body that all of a sudden, like their anatomy is very similar to your anatomy. And if they can do it, it's evidence that you can do it. So instead of, we can have that scarcity, that resentment, and let something knock us down. And then we're like, oh my gosh. And we kind of are jealous of someone
Mhm.
else being able to do it. But instead of going into those emotions, celebrate it, be like, wow, that's possible. They can do that. That's just evidence that I can experience this too. And then give yourself the time to do the practices, to do the things. So slowly over time, you create longer pleasure pathways in your brain with neuroplasticity, and you tap into this untapped potential that lies within you. It's
Mhm.
just waiting for you to discover it and give it that TLC and cultivate it, just with any other practice if you're wanting to build mastery.
Mhm.
And don't give up and don't be discouraged. Just like when babies first learn to walk, when they first take their steps, they
Mhm.
don't fall down and be like, oh, this isn't for me.
Mhm.
They get back up and keep going. Same with these practices. Like, you want to give yourself compassion. Don't shame yourself and be like, oh, okay, what can I learn from this? What is my body teaching me? How maybe I could approach this different, and not to shame your body and not to feel guilty or make yourself bad or wrong.
Mhm.
Because even the people that can last 5 hours, they don't always do that every time. There's
Yeah.
sometimes when they have their own quickies, or they might ejaculate more quickly than they want to too, because we're in these human bodies, right? We're having a human experience, and we may want everything to always be perfect, but perfectionism is an illusion. It's
Mhm.
not a reality. And so we need to be like, we're imperfectly human, and I'm at least trying to learn something new, and I'm going to give myself compassion and grace as
Mhm.
I'm leveling up to this higher experience that I'm striving for.
No, I love that. No, very well said. Great question that just came to my mind, let's say for someone in their 30s, right? And very well aware that, keeping your life force, keeping your sperm in is, all the minerals, the fat, the protein, B12, zinc, everything that's in it. One of the keys to longevity, the more you keep that in, the longer, of course, you're supposed to ejaculate here and there. So the question for you is, what is the safe amount of time to actually ejaculate the sperm for a male in their 30s that's still committed to living a long, healthy life, wanting to have sex in their 60s and 70s. And of course, they're practicing all these things and mastering these things, and they're committed to all these things, right? What is the healthiest amount of time, let's say on a monthly basis or a yearly basis, in your opinion, that it's okay to ejaculate, let's say once a month or every 2 weeks, or like, I'm just curious to hear your thoughts on that.
Yes, such a great question. I feel like it's best to, especially if you don't have any other medical illnesses and you're healthy and you're young and 30, I'm thinking once to twice a week at the max would be good.
Yeah.
And then if you're able, sometimes alternate it up and see if you can go 2 weeks or even a month without ejaculating, and see how your body, and just kind of play with your body and see how you feel on an energetic level based on how often you're allowing yourself to release. And
Mm,
then whenever you are releasing, like if you release and you're doing a practice to try not to release, don't shame yourself or feel bad about it. Be like, okay, that's my body. Like, my body is designed to do that.
mm,
That's okay. I'm just unlocking this next level ninja trick for myself. And
mm,
I'm not going to make myself feel bad on
mm,
this journey of growth. Right.
mm,
So, be compassionate with yourself, and just know that, it's more about not ever not ejaculating. It's just like being able to have that ability to, with your choice of like consciously, like, I do want to ejaculate this time, or I don't. Now, we'll share with you, it's very important for males, though, that they don't ejaculate when it's a full moon. And yesterday was a full moon in Libra. So when it's a full moon, if you ejaculate, for males, it can actually drain more of your life force energy, because you've got to think your body is made of 70% water.
mm,
And the full moon has such a powerful effect on the tides of the ocean
mm,
and the pool. And that's why we can feel a lot of different emotional feels and stuff on a full moon as well, if you pay attention to that. And so for males, you'll feel even more drained if you ejaculate on a full moon.
mm,
So for females, if we ejaculate, or we orgasm, I should say, on a full moon, we actually can charge up and supercharge our ability to manifest at the
mm,
full moon. For males, it's better for you to use your sexual energy for manifestation on a new moon than a full moon. So it's just different how based on how our bodies are designed, what's the most powerful for us, and the phases of the moon, the lunar cycle too.
Awesome. And you said manifest in the full moon in the sense like meditate and visualize and set some intentions and put them out there and stuff like that,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. And there's a longer process. It's in Tantra. It's called sex magic. And I have a program where I guide people on all these practices to do that, because it goes even deeper into that. And it's like in your subconscious, where you're having blocks to things, where you feel bad or negative about your pleasure, and just learning how to experience prolonged pleasure and tapping into like what it is that you're wanting to create into your life. And so bringing all that together.
Yeah, I love that you just mentioned sex magic. I am a big fan of it. I am studying it, and yeah, so I'm all about sex magic.
Awesome.
I feel like that could just be like a total different podcast that we could really dive deep. One last question before we finish this podcast. On a practical level, everybody is dealing with shame and guilt, especially in the bedroom. It could be trauma, sexual trauma. It could be so many things, society, environmental influences, all the stuff, right? But how could one start to get over this shame and guilt, or how to heal it? What are some things that you could share with them?
That's such a good thing. I actually created a masterclass. Maybe we could put the link here in the show notes. I have a masterclass replay on how to heal from sexual shame. And I go into that because it's one thing that I see it as so common with people that I work with. Even if they don't work with me, when they fill out their discovery call to inquire about working with me, like the topic of shame is so common for both males and females. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of practices. And with this replay masterclass, you also get some other tools and techniques where I guide you. It's almost like you get a login through I have it on Kajabi, and you get a login and you can watch the class. And then I have extra bonus resources and things to guide you on healing the shame. So it's a bigger answer than I can put in here, but it's so important to let go of that shame and let go of feeling wrong or bad about your body, because your body is amazing. And if anyone deserves to enjoy your body, it's you. And you should not feel shame about enjoying your body, and you shouldn't feel shame about your sexual energy. Just learn how to be the master of it instead of having it control you and having you do things that are in a lower vibration where you can't even control your urges and you're constantly draining your life force energy, because then that's going to make you feel, that's going to drain you a lot. And when we're drained, we can feel more shame and depression and down and things like that too.
Yeah, like it's all just, I'd say languages. Emotions and feelings are languages, and you just have to learn to communicate in these languages. So when you feel shame, it's a way of communication. Sit with that, talk and observe it. Where do you feel the shame, and process it, acknowledge it, and dig deeper within where that shame comes from, because you're whole, you're amazing, you're divine, right? So yes, things that comes up, you just got to observe it, sit with them, and understand the lessons that can come from it, right? And you can dig so much deeper when you start to realize that, oh crap, this comes from this and this comes from that, all those things, right? I want to say thank you so much for this time. I learned a lot. I'm sure the audience is going to learn a lot. There were so many beautiful conversations that we just had. We could almost charge for this podcast. It was just amazing. So I want to say thank you so much, Dominique. Before we finish off the podcast, let everybody know where they can find you. I'm going to include your information in the podcast details. So if they want to work with you, they want to reach out to you, they want to follow you, they can find you in that section.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'll share a link that has a hyperlink that has all my other links, and my website is yestantra.com. Okay. You can also request a complimentary 30-minute discovery call with me to see how we can work together if you feel like you're ready to be coached by me. And in those links too, you can find my other replays of masterclasses. And I have another masterclass that's about female orgasms, the female pleasure. And I go over the 9+ different types of female orgasms. And I bring in my knowledge about the human body, being a nurse, being a sexpert, being a tantra coach, and I bring all that together. And it's a great class for both males and females to check out and just to have better understanding of your body. And so yes Tantra, and at Yes Tantra on all my socials, and Yes Tantra on YouTube as well. And I share lots more resources there.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'll definitely put those details in the section so they can find you. And I want to say thank you so much for your time. And I'm just super, super grateful that we got to have this conversation. And as we finish off the podcast, I want to put some intentions out there that for the listeners that are listening to the podcast, my intentions are for you to become aware of your sexual energy. My intentions are for you to become aware of the power of sexual energy, and how much, you can truly achieve your goals, your desires, whatever it is that you want. It could be an income goal. It could be anything. Once you start to learn the power of your sexual energy, you can truly discover a natural pre-workout. In Napoleon Hill, chapter 13, the mysteries of sex transmutation, it's just a little part of it. But there's so much that can happen. I have achieved some of the most amazing things, and I've hit some big goals in the last 6 years since I've become aware of my sexual energy, only being, at the age of 32 now. And I work with men in all ages, and it's just, there's so much power within this. So my intentions are for you to listen to this podcast and take some of this stuff away, not only for entertainment purposes, but truly take this value, take the practical steps, and start to implement them in your day-to-day life, and start to discover the divine version of yourself, and just see the power that this stuff has. And lastly, until next time, stay an aware alpha.